Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. This time, we're all about the Vanguard Information Technology ETF.
VGT.
VGT, you got it.
There you go.
We're going to be diving into this, as always, using some research reports, market data, and really kind of unearthing what makes this thing tick.
Yeah, it's like we're popping the hood on the tech sector, taking a look inside.
Perfect. Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
So let's start with, I guess, kind of a high-level overview. Like, what is this thing? What is VGT?
Yeah, so at a basic level, VGT tracks the MSCI U.S. Investable Market Information Technology 2550 Index.
Whoa.
Yeah, mouthful.
Okay.
But basically, it's designed to give you exposure to a broad range of U.S. tech companies.
So if I buy VGT, I'm basically investing in the whole tech sector.
Yeah, like you're buying a slice of the entire tech pie.
Right. So rather than picking individual stocks,
Exactly.
I'm just buying the index, the basket.
Yep, and VGT aims to match the index's performance as closely as possible. It's what's called a passive management style.
Passive, so they're not actively picking and choosing different stocks.
Exactly.
So what's the advantage of that?
Well, one big advantage is lower costs.
Makes sense.
You know, since they're not actively trading, there's less overhead, fewer analysts, and those savings get passed on to investors.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of costs, I know that VGT has a pretty low expense ratio, right?
Oh, yeah. Super low, like 0.10%.
Wow. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
really low
That's-
money away in fees there.
So how has it actually done? What's its performance been like?
Well, as of the end of September 2024, VGT had a one-year return of 21.85%
Okay.
and a three-year return of 42.41%.
Wow. Those are pretty juicy numbers.
Yeah,
But, obviously past performance
of course.
isn't indicative of future results.
You got it. Standard disclaimer there. But, still impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, it gives a sense of, how the tech sector's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's actually dig into some of the companies
Okay.
that are part of VGT.
Yeah, let's open it up and see what's inside.
What are some of the major players? Who are the heavy hitters?
Well, the usual suspects are up there. Apple's at the top with 16.2%, followed by Microsoft at 14%,
Microsoft, yep.
and then NVIDIA also at 14%.
NVIDIA. So this is interesting. So much is going on with them.
I know, right? They're on fire.
Their graphics cards are becoming essential.
For everything.
Yeah.
From gaming to AI.
AI, everything.
Yeah, they're really riding that wave.
So does that mean that VGT is really vulnerable then?
That's a good question.
If NVIDIA or Apple or Microsoft were to stumble?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. We'll have to explore that more because it's all about risk, right?
Right.
And understanding how much concentration is too much.
So it's not all just mega cap companies though, right?
Oh, absolutely not. VGT also has exposure to a mix of large, mid, and small cap companies.
Okay, so what's the breakdown there?
So as of our data, it's about 73% large cap.
8.2% mid cap and 10.9% small cap.
So it leans heavily towards the established giants.
It does.
But it's still kind of trying to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, get a little bit of that growth potential.
Right. And speaking of diversity, let's talk about the different sectors within tech itself. We've got software, hardware, semiconductors, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so it's not just one big lump of tech.
Right.
It breaks down into sub-industries.
So like what?
So, for example, semiconductors,
Whoa.
which are, the building blocks of all our electronics,
Crucial.
they make a pretty sizable chunk, like 28.8% of the portfolio.
Semiconductors, right? We hear so much about that these days, especially
Supply chain issues.
supply chain issues, yeah.
Yeah.
So what else? What other sub-industries?
We've got systems software
Okay.
at 20.2%. So think like operating systems, database management, all that essential stuff.
The stuff we don't even think about.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
It just works.
Exactly.
What?
And then there's technology, hardware, storage, and peripherals.
Okay, so that's like
About 18%.
the physical computers and servers.
Yeah, the stuff you can actually touch.
Right. Stuff you can touch, printers, whatever.
Exactly.
So it really is kind of the whole gamut.
Yeah, it tries to capture the whole tech ecosystem.
But I'm curious about something.
Cool.
All this talk about innovation and growth and new stuff. How often does VGT actually change what it's holding?
That's a good question.
Is it constantly buying and selling, trying to chase the latest trends?
Well, that's where the turnover rate comes in.
Okay.
And for VGT, it's 15.4%.
So that's relatively low.
Yeah, it means it's not making huge changes all the time.
Okay.
It's more of a buy and hold approach.
So they're kind of sticking with what they have and betting on those companies.
Yeah, trusting the long-term growth of the sector.
That makes sense, but it also makes me wonder, how does it stay relevant then?
Good question.
The tech world changes so fast.
Yeah, it's like trying to hit a moving target.
Right. So how does VGT keep up?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into next.
Perfect. I'm excited to hear more about that.
Me too, me too.
So stay tuned, folks.
Stay tuned.
We'll be back after a quick break. All right, so we were talking about how VGT stays relevant.
Right.
In this crazy world of tech that just moves so fast.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Especially with that low turnover rate, like we were saying.
Right, because we're talking about those big players.
Exactly, those big names.
Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA.
Yeah, and they're driving so much of VGT's performance, but what happens if one of them stumbles?
Yeah, that's what worries me.
Yeah, it's that concentration risk.
Okay.
Right, they're like the pillars holding it up.
Okay.
And if one weakens, the whole structure could wobble a bit.
So even though they can lead to big gains.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When they're doing well.
Huge upside potential.
It also makes VGT kind of vulnerable.
Yeah, more sensitive to any hiccups they might have.
So how do we think about this risk?
I think it comes down to your own risk tolerance.
Okay.
Right. Are you comfortable with that level of dependence on a few companies?
So it's a trade-off, high reward. Yeah, high reward, high risk kind of thing.
But then there's that whole diversification aspect that we were talking about before.
Right, and while VGT does diversify a bit.
Within tech.
Within the tech sector.
Yeah, it's still all tech.
It's still a bet on tech as a whole.
So if the whole sector takes a hit,
you're going to feel
everyone's going down.
Exactly. It's not immune to broader market trends.
So that's why you probably don't want to put all your eggs in this one basket.
That's the classic advice, right?
Yeah.
Diversify across different sectors.
Spread the love.
Yeah, spread the risk.
Okay, so we've got concentration risk. We've got that whole sector risk. Any other downsides or risks that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, there's always the good old market volatility, right? Which can be especially pronounced in tech.
Oh, yeah. Tech is notorious for its ups and downs.
Today's hot stock is tomorrow's,
ancient history. It moves so fast.
So, again, VGT can skyrocket.
Eventually, yeah.
But it can also plummet.
There's that downside risk, too.
So it's not for the, the risk-averse investor.
For the faint of heart, that's for sure.
But if you believe in tech and you can stomach the roller coaster ride, it could be a pretty good option.
Yeah, it offers that exposure to all that innovation and growth.
Which brings us back to that question of how it stays relevant.
Right. How does it keep up?
When everything's changing so quickly.
Well, remember, it's tied to that index.
Right, the really long one.
The MSCI U.S. Investable Market Information Technology 2550 Index.
Yeah.
But the good news is it's not a static list.
Oh, okay.
It gets reevaluated and updated regularly.
So as companies kind of rise and fall.
Yeah, new companies come in, old ones go out.
So it's like it's constantly adapting.
It's like a living organism. It has to evolve to survive.
So VGT's not stuck with, like, dinosaurs.
No dinosaurs allowed.
It's actually evolving along with the sector.
Exactly. It's trying to stay on the cutting edge.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind.
So, but then the challenge becomes, what's going to be the next big thing?
Right. How do you predict the future of tech?
Because that's what's going to shape what VGT looks like down the line.
Exactly. It's all about anticipating those trends.
So what are some of the things that we should be paying attention to?
Well, I think one big one is this whole digital transformation that's happening everywhere.
In all sectors, not just tech.
Right, like healthcare, finance, manufacturing, you name it.
So it's like tech is infiltrating.
It's becoming the backbone of everything.
Wow.
And that means the definition of tech is changing too.
So a healthcare company developing some amazing AI diagnostic tool
Exactly.
that could be part of VGT.
Potentially, yeah.
It's not just about, gadgets anymore.
It's about the underlying technology.
That's really interesting. So VGT's potential is even bigger than we might think.
Yeah, it's all about seeing the bigger picture.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about VGT's performance, its holdings, the risks, the future trends.
The good, the bad, and the unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a complex beast.
It is. So before we wrap up, what's your final takeaway?
If someone's thinking about investing in VGT, what's the most important thing they should keep in mind? I think the key is to remember that you're not just investing in a bunch of companies.
Okay.
You're investing in the future of technology itself.
You're betting on innovation.
Exactly. You're saying, I believe technology is going to keep changing the world.
And you're willing to accept the ups and downs.
Roller coaster ride that comes with it.
Right, because we talked about all the risks.
Mm-hmm. It's not a guaranteed win.
But VGT is trying to adapt.
It's designed to evolve with the sector.
So you're trusting that process?
Yeah, you're trusting that the index will stay on top of things.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's a long-term view. You got to have faith in the power of technology.
That's a good point. So VGT, it's a tool.
Yeah, a powerful tool.
But you got to use it wisely.
Absolutely. Informed decisions are key.
Well said, well said. So I think that about wraps up.
Yeah, I think we covered it.
Our deep dive on VGT. I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Oh, yeah, easily.
There's so much to unpack here.
Tech never sleeps.
It really doesn't. And VGT...
It's trying to keep up.
It's right there in the thick of it.
On the front line.
So for our listeners who are, maybe thinking about VGT, what would you say is, like, the one thing
key takeaway
that they should really take away from this?
I think it boils down to this. VGT is a bet on the future of technology.
Oh.
It's not just about the companies in it right now.
Right.
It's about where tech is going.
It's about that bigger picture.
Exactly, the trajectory.
And that can be exciting.
Oh, yeah, huge potential.
But also risky.
Of course, there's always risk.
We talked about the concentration.
Those big players can make or break it.
And just the inherent volatility of the tech market.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
But VGT, it's trying to mitigate that risk.
It's constantly adapting, remember?
Right, with that updating index.
Evolving index, yeah.
So it's kind of like a self-correcting mechanism.
Oh, wait, yeah.
So it's less about trying to predict exactly what's going to happen.
You can't predict the future.
And more about trusting the process.
Trusting that VGT will adjust and stay relevant.
So a long-term view.
Absolutely. You got to have that long-term vision.
And a belief in the power of tech.
That's the core of it.
I think that's a really great way to sum it up.
Yeah, I think so too.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring.
This is just the beginning.
It's an amazing world out there.
The world of tech is always changing.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to discover the next big thing.
That's the fun part, right?
Yeah, before it even makes it into VGT.
Stay curious.
Stay curious, that's the message.
That's the key.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.